So during the initiation phase, it's important to ask yourself, what are the things we still need to acquire in order to complete our project? Project resources usually include budget, people, and materials. You'll use tools to manage all those resources. As you think about the goals and the scope of the project, you'll figure out the different resources you'll need to meet those goals. It's important to figure out your resources before the project gets rolling. This makes it easy for everyone on your team to get their work done. And that's your job as a project manager. You won't be doing the work directly, but you'll support the people who do. Figuring out resources early on also helps you avoid accidentally understaffing your project, which can seriously slow down team progress and eat away at the overall timeline. Even worse, if you're not careful with your resource planning, you could wind up underestimating the budget, meaning you might not have enough money to purchase necessary materials, hire vendors, or support overtime requests. Planning your resources early is a great way to set your team up for success. Because when your teammates have what they need to do their work on time and on budget, they're better set up to meet the project's goals. Now let's break down some of the resources that project managers typically work with. First, let's talk about budgets. A budget is an estimate of the amount of money a project will cost to complete. Almost all projects have budgets because they need funding for expenses, like buying the right materials or software, hiring vendors to complete jobs, or doing marketing once the project's done. During the initiation phase, you'll talk to the stakeholders and the people working on the project to figure out the tasks needed to get the project done. Here, you might ask questions to help uncover hidden costs. For example, are there any taxes on products that you need to account for? What about extra fees? All this information will help you create a budget, which you can use to source and compare proposals from vendors, figure out upcoming costs, and track all the money moving in and out of your project. You often include the budget in the project charter, and the stakeholders review it for approval. We'll talk more about what goes into creating a project budget and creating a project charter later on. When we talk about resources, we're also talking about the team of people who help execute the tasks of a project. For example, you, as the project manager, are a resource. So is the marketing manager who might create advertisements for this new product. Other resources can include people outside of your company who have unique skills and can do certain tasks that people in your organization can't do personally. Then you have materials. These are items you need to help get the project done. For example, project materials might include the lumber needed to complete a construction project. Okay, so you know that project resources include budget, people, and materials. How do you organize these resources? That's actually a nice transition into our next topic, which is tools. Tools are aids that make it easier for a project manager or team to manage resources and organize work. They help you do things like track tasks, manage budgets, and collaborate with teammates. There are all kinds of tools out there, including productivity tools like Google Docs and work management software like Asana. We'll talk more about these tools later in this program. Tools are essential for tracking progress, so you want to keep them top of mind at all phases of your project. Let's talk about how you might determine your resources during the initiation phase of your project at Office Green. As a reminder, the PlantPal service offers customers small, low-maintenance plants like cacti and leafy ferns that they can place on their desks. Customers can order them online or from a print catalog, and Office Green will ship the plants straight to the customer's work address. The project goal is to increase revenue by 5%. So how do you get started? Well, you might do some research to figure out the costs of launching the new plant service. That might include the estimated prices of developing a new website and new promotional materials, as well as shipping and delivery costs. You also might want to budget for specific tools, like a project management software that will help you track progress on this complex project. With that information, you can start to build a realistic budget. And you'll also need to figure out who's working on this project with you. To do this, you might make a list of people and external vendors who will help complete all the project's tasks. For example, the person who manages client communications with customers, or a new plant supplier that can provide you with your product. By now, you've probably noticed that a big part of project management is guiding decision making. Even if you're not the one making final decisions on major aspects of the project, it's still your job to keep track of every new decision and use those decisions to create a plan. And as you've learned, there are a lot of important decisions to keep track of. That includes everything from identifying project goals and deliverables to choosing the right people to add to a team. It's way too much for any one person to mentally keep track of. It's also important information for everyone on the team to be aware of, not just the project manager. If a decision affects a member of the team's tasks, they'll need to know about it, right? That's why documentation is such an important part of a project manager's role. While your team may work deeply on specific areas of the project, you might be the only person on the team who is aware of and communicating across all the different areas of the project. Clear and consistent documentation can ensure transparency and clear communication. Documentation helps set the stage for the project. It communicates the answers to key questions. For example, what problem are you trying to solve? What are the project goals? What are the scope and deliverables? And who are the project stakeholders? And lastly, what resources does a team need to complete their work? This is all crucial information for anyone who's working on a project, regardless of their role. Documentation also helps preserve decisions made early on in the project and can serve as a reference point for team members who might join later in the project lifecycle. It's your job to ensure that this information is easily accessible through some kind of formal documentation like an email, a presentation, or a digital document. Also, documenting decisions can help you uncover tasks, timelines, or costs you hadn't previously considered. And lastly, this process provides a historical record that can be reviewed at the end of your project. You can apply the lessons you've learned in the future. Okay, let's get into different types of documentation. Up next, we'll look at project proposals and project charters, two types of documents that can set you up for success early on. Now let's talk about two common types of documentation you could use to keep track of details and keep your stakeholders informed. These are the project proposal and the project charter. A project proposal is a form of documentation that comes at the very beginning of the project. This document's purpose is to persuade stakeholders that a project should begin. And typically, a senior organizational leader creates the proposal. So you might not need to worry about creating the proposal, but you will have to keep track of the proposal's progress. The project proposal is a great starting point to help you understand the desired goals and impact. A proposal may be a formal document, a presentation, or even a simple email to get others on board with the idea. Then we have the project charter, a formal document that clearly defines the project and outlines the necessary details to reach its goals. A project charter helps you get organized, set up a framework for what needs to be done, and communicate those details to others. So how do these documents differ? A project proposal is created earlier in the project lifecycle than the project charter. The proposal kicks off the initiation phase by influencing and persuading the company to move forward with the project. The project charter serves a similar purpose and often comes at the end of the initiation phase. However, its goal is to more clearly define the key details of the project. Another difference between these two documents is that a charter will often serve as a point of reference throughout the life of a project. The proposal is only used at the earliest stages. Now that you know the difference between these two documents, let's take a closer look at the project charter, which you'll learn more about in this module. The project charter makes clear that the benefits of a project outweigh the costs. As you learned earlier in this course, there are a few questions you might ask yourself when performing a cost-benefit analysis. That includes questions like, what value will this project create? How much money could this project save my organization? And how much time will people have to spend on this project? You will include the answers to these questions in your charter. Including this type of information ensures that you and your stakeholders agree on the project value. The charter also helps ensure that you and your stakeholders agree on the details of the project. Project charter approval means that management is supportive, and it's also a key step to ensure that the project matches the needs of the organization. After the stakeholders and project sponsor has reviewed and approved the project charter, you now have the authority to move forward with the project. Project charters can be formatted in a few ways and can contain different information depending on the project and the organization. The information in a charter might also be tailored to its audience or the needs of specific stakeholders. For example, if you're writing a project charter for a stakeholder who is a marketing executive, the charter might include information about how the project will impact the organization's brand. Or if the stakeholder is the chief technology officer, the charter might include information on the costs of engineering resources needed to maintain the project. Regardless of the format or the audience, creating a project charter is a best practice for ensuring that everyone agrees on how to move forward before entering the planning phase. The project charter is a living document. This means that it can evolve as the project progresses. As the project manager, you'll review and refine the charter throughout the process. Now that you know more about the value of a project charter, it's time to learn how to create one. Project charters are key for securing approval from stakeholders and moving forward. Project charters can also be formatted in many different ways, and there are many different templates available online for you to choose from. Here, we'll use a template that's similar to one that program managers often use at Google. And to fill in each section, we'll use details from your project at Office Green. Ready? Let's take a look. At the top of your charter, you want to add in the name of your project. Let's add in the name of your project at Office Green. It's called Project Plant Pals. You also want to add in a brief summary. Let's type that in. Our plan is to offer high-volume customers small, low-maintenance plants that can thrive in an office environment. Next up, let's fill in the section labeled Project Goals. Remember that goals should be SMART, which means that they are specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's add in the goal for Project Plant Pals, which is to increase revenue by 5% by rolling out a new service that provides office plants to top clients by the end of the year. Great! Now let's add in the project deliverable. Remember that a deliverable is a tangible outcome from a project. As you learned earlier, our deliverables for this project are to send 1,000 plants to 100 customers and to launch a new website for orders and customer support. Okay, now let's add in the business case, which captures the reasoning for initiating this project. Let's type in, this is a top requested service from our customers, and it will also improve customer satisfaction and retention. The business case is supported by the cost-benefit analysis, and we'll add that in now. Let's start with the benefits. The benefits, or expected gains of the project, include improving customer satisfaction and an increase in revenue. Now we'll move on to the costs. The costs include the price of the sourcing products, developing a website, and marketing materials. Let's type in $250,000 for the estimated budget. Nice! We've now outlined some of the benefits and costs of this project. Keep in mind that these are simple examples to teach you the basics of filling out a charter. When running a real project, you perform a more detailed analysis to determine the benefits and costs. The key takeaway here is that benefits should always outweigh the cost. Fantastic. Let's keep going. Next, we're going to add in the project scope, as well as what's considered out of scope for this project. Remember, scope is an agreed upon understanding of what is included or excluded from a project. An item that is in scope includes creating a service to deliver small plants to last year's top clients. An item that is out of scope and therefore not available to customers includes plant care after they're delivered. Amazing. Hopefully you can see how stating what's in scope and what's out of scope helps everyone working on the project understand where they should focus their efforts. Great. Now let's add in your project team. Let's see here. The project sponsor is Office Green's Director of Product. So let's add that in. Who is the project lead? Well, that's you. The project team may include marketing associates, website developers, and external plant vendors, and more. So we can add in a few important project team members here. Awesome. Let's move on to additional stakeholders. Additional stakeholders may include the Vice President of Customer Success, who is accountable for customer feedback and corresponding product requests. We can also add in the account manager, who will leverage their existing relationships with top clients. And let's also add in the fulfillment manager, who will help acquire the plants needed to launch this service. We're almost done. Let's add in how we'll measure success. Here, we'll type in that we want to see a 5% increase in revenue by the end of the year. Let's also type in that we want to hit a customer satisfaction rate of 95% 3 months after launch. That's it. The project charter is filled in, and now it's ready to be reviewed by your stakeholders. Now you're done. You've seen how documentation helps form the roots of a project and how it contributes to the project's ultimate success. Like nurturing a plant, you're learning to nurture a project to ensure it's the best it can be. As a project manager, tools are some of the most helpful resources you have at your disposal. They're essential for tracking progress, so it's important to keep them top of mind throughout the entire project. Let's talk more about why tools are so useful and why it's important to choose the right ones for your needs. There are lots of different tools out there, and you'll learn more about them later. As a reminder, tools are aids that make it easier for a project manager or team to manage resources and organize work. They're useful because they can help you track detailed information about all kinds of tasks, and they make it easy to communicate with lots of different people. And remember, effective communication and tracking are huge parts of a project manager's day-to-day responsibilities. Just think about how much tougher your job would be without help from collaboration tools like email or digital documents created in Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Let's imagine this in the context of our project at Office Green. As lead project manager, you have tons of information about the company's plan to provide office-friendly plants to top clients. But what would happen if you wrote every project detail on a whiteboard instead of a shared online document? Well, every member of your team would have to stop by your desk to get the latest information. And that's definitely not the most efficient use of anyone's time. But if you store this information in easily accessible online documents, you save everyone on the team time, energy, and a major headache. Today's tools have made it so much easier to share information with teammates. Even better, with project management tools, information sharing goes both ways. That means team members can also easily update you on their progress without the need for extra meetings or phone calls. How great is that? When you choose the right tool for a project, you make it easy for teammates to let you know if a task is on schedule or if it's delayed, which lets you quickly see how any changes might affect the rest of the project. Project management tools increases visibility and transparency for everyone, including stakeholders. You can use a variety of tools to accomplish many different things, like tracking progress on tasks, deliverables, and milestones. Tools can also help you manage a budget, build helpful charts and diagrams, manage contracts and licenses, and keep stakeholders informed. Tools can be straightforward, like digital spreadsheets or documents, or they can be more sophisticated, like scheduling and work management software. It's important to think about the needs of the project when choosing which to use. One thing to keep in mind is that if you choose a more sophisticated tool, your teammates and stakeholders will need some time to get familiar with it. For small projects, that might be more trouble than it's worth. So for small projects, a straightforward tool might be more effective. But if a project has a big scope, then it might be worth the team's time to learn and ultimately work with a more sophisticated project management tool. You should also keep in mind that sometimes you won't have a choice about the types of tools you use. If an organization has already decided to use a specific tool, then you will need to work with what they give you. It's all about remaining flexible. Are you starting to see how you can use tools to keep projects on track? Whether they're straightforward or sophisticated, tools have the power to help you communicate and manage more effectively. One common tool type is scheduling and work management software. There are lots of different types of work management software on the market, including popular tools like these. Certain tools may work better for your project depending on a bunch of things. For example, the project methodology you're running or the number of tasks and people involved. So, why would you choose to use scheduling and work management software? Well, it can be really useful for assigning tasks to multiple teammates and for tracking progress on that work. It can also help you visualize your team's progress. For example, if you're using work management software to assign and track tasks, you're more likely to notice if your team completes 50 tasks one week and just 3 tasks the following week. That's a clear sign that you need to check in to see if there's a problem that's blocking progress. If you hadn't been tracking their tasks, you might not have noticed the issue. That's part of the reason why work management software is so useful. It provides an overview of how the project is going, so you know when you need to check in with your teams to get tasks back on track. Another type of project management tool we'll discuss is tools for productivity. Productivity tools can be very helpful for you and your team. This includes word processing tools like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. You can use these to create shared documents with the team, like the project charter we taught you how to fill out earlier. You can also use these tools to build documents like meeting agendas and status updates, and we'll talk more about these in a later course. Spreadsheets are another useful productivity tool. They're versatile, and you can use them to make documents like RACI charts and project plans, as well as other helpful charts you'll learn more about in a later course. And presentations created in tools like Microsoft PowerPoint, Keynote, or Google Slides can be a great way to package your project in a visual, easily digestible way. Now, let's discuss collaboration tools, which you'll probably rely on to work closely with your teammates. These include tools you're probably familiar with, like email and chat. Tools like this can help you quickly and efficiently check in with each other on questions, comments, and other topics related to the project. Productivity tools like documents and spreadsheets, and collaboration tools like email and chat are all pretty simple, which means they're great for smaller projects with fewer tasks and teammates to keep track of. Scheduling and work management software is better for bigger projects with a larger number of tasks and a bigger team of people to manage. Cool. You've learned more about the types of tools available to you, including scheduling and work management software, productivity tools, and collaboration tools. We'll spend the next video diving a bit deeper on some of the most popular project management tools out there. Earlier, you learned about different types of project management tools, from scheduling and work management software to tools for productivity and collaboration. Now let's discuss a few popular tools you might be expected to use or at least be familiar with. There are many different types of work management software that automatically make project planning and tracking a lot easier and that are much more efficient than manual project tracking. One tool that we'll focus on in this program is Asana. Asana is a work management platform that helps teams plan and coordinate their work, from daily tasks to strategic initiatives. Asana provides a living system and a source of truth where everyone's work lives. With Asana, everyone can see, discuss, and manage team priorities, giving teams clarity on who is doing what by when. It's great for building project plans, assigning tasks, automating workflows, tracking progress, and communicating with stakeholders. As a project manager, you can use Asana to create a log of tasks, like gathering cost estimates from external vendors, and assign a task to people on the team. All tasks are visible and organized in the format of the project manager's choice, like in a list or on a calendar, and designed to drive transparency and connection with all the tasks related to the overall goal. It's easy to use with external stakeholders as well, because within Asana, you can share status updates and other communications with people outside your company. Another great tool we'll focus on throughout this program is the spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are extremely versatile, and you can use them for a wide range of tasks, from creating timelines and building charts to managing budgets and tracking tasks. You can add and view project information in a variety of formats depending on what you need in the moment. For example, let's say you enter a list of tasks, due dates, completion statuses, and task owners into a spreadsheet. From there, it's very simple to sort the list by due date to see what's due next. You can then filter the list of tasks by task owner so that you'll only see the things you're responsible for. You can also highlight the rows of the sheet in different colors to visually illustrate the tasks with the least progress. With spreadsheets, you can easily transform, visualize, and manipulate information. Spreadsheets and more comprehensive tools like Asana are just two options for effective project management. And it's a good idea to get a basic understanding of a variety of software options out there. Then, if your company doesn't have a standard software tool, you can choose the right one for the project needs. Being able to recommend the right tool for the job can be a great way to add value to your team at the beginning of a project. Keep in mind, however, that software options are constantly changing, from the addition of new features to the launch of new tools. There's no way for you to know every software available, and no company would expect that of you. Many of these tools have similar functionality, like task tracking and task assignment. So if you understand one tool deeply, you should be able to easily adapt to a new tool on the job.
Congratulations on finishing this video in the Google Project Management Certificate. Access the full learning experience, including job search help, and start to earn your official certificate by clicking on the icon. To view the next course in this video, click here and subscribe to our channel to learn more from Google Career Certificates.